Well, with my group, a lot of us are disabled, and especially with me, I really don't feel anything uh, in my feet and below my knees. So once I get out there, start wading, and you're going through a run, and like let's say something on the Cowlitz, and there's a lot of big boulders and stuff out there, and I have a hard time making it through the run. So a lot of times if the run's crowded or something, I'll pull myself out, let people go by, and it's just, somebody catches a fish in front of it as I go by, and that really sucks. But
That was Steve Baylog sharing a steelhead fly fishing struggle. This is the celebration episode where I celebrate everyone who listens and has supported the show for the first year. I'm back, baby.
Welcome to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show, where you discover tips, tricks, and tools from the leading names in fly fishing today. We'll help you on your fly fishing journey with classic stories covering steelhead fishing, fly tying, and much more.
Hey everyone, before we jump into it, just wanted to give you a heads up. Today's show is sponsored by you, if you'd like. As we celebrate a year in the podcast, I have found a new way to provide value for you, if you like, where you can go deeper, and at the same time, you can provide a monetary donation for as low as $1 per month. That's $1. So go to wetflyswing.com/Patreon to find out how to support the show and get bonus content. And if I have time, I'll chat about this a little bit later. The idea, I've talked about this a little bit before, but the idea here with this podcast was to make a podcast to essentially teach people, to teach people about fly fishing, help people get into it, but also to connect the dots of the historical piece. And I just talked to somebody today on Instagram. I probably don't have it handy here. Let's see if I can look it up. Just talked to, we were chatting today, and he mentioned that he's like, hey, just thank me for the show, and that was awesome, and I appreciated that. And then I think I have it right here. Yes, so it's House Fly Fishing on Instagram, and he just came back after a while. He was like, actually, here's what he said. He said, I do have a suggestion. And he says, there have been quite a few notable fishermen in the North, in New York Catskills region. I'm pretty sure a lot of the American dry flies were developed by people there. Can't give you specific names because I'm not good when it comes to that stuff. But it'd be great to have an episode on this. So it was like, just like that, now I have a cool episode idea. And that's pretty much where I get most of my ideas, either from, well, I guess I get some from just stuff that I'm thinking about, but either from my guests that have people that they they recommend, or from listeners, people that that are out there. So it's pretty cool. I mean, I think that's probably the reason why this thing is, people are loving it so much, is that I'm just asking questions and talking to people and hearing stories about what we kind of all want to hear about. So I'm going to keep doing that. And basically we've had season 1, all steelhead. That was like the first 30 or so episodes was pretty much focused on steelhead. Now we're in season 2, which is like all mostly trout kind of focus. I sprinkle in some occasional podcasts if I get kind of some good ones, some extra special ones I'll sprinkle in. But the next thing we are definitely going to be going to, and I'm already kind of preparing and interviewing some of the guests, is for the destination season, or destination and DIY, where that works. So I want to get out there and do some of this awesome, some of the saltwater fishing, some of the cool stuff that's going on. So that'll be season 3. And then season 4, I think, is going to be fly tying. I've heard from a number of people that sounds like fly tying would be cool. There's definitely a lot of good topics we cover. So haven't even started thinking too much about that. That's ways down the line, but that's kind of where we're at. I'm just going to leave it there. If you want to, I've got a number of places you can subscribe to the email list. I'm trying to put together a group of people that are interested in providing feedback. So maybe reach out to me if you're interested in that. But yeah, just want to, say thank you. This is, I'm having a ton of fun, as you can probably tell. It's a lot of work editing and producing, podcasts. putting it all together, making it sound good. It definitely takes some time. And but I love it. I love doing it. I love hearing from people. And so the other big thing that kind of goes with this is, as you see from the sponsors, it costs some money to put together a podcast. Not a ton, but it costs some money. So what I'm trying to do is cover those and then get enough revenue from some of the sponsors, some of the other things I'm going to talk about here today, where I can actually support, not a full-time income, but maybe a good chunk to allow me to do more of this. Right now, I'm kind of restricted to what I can do because I can't just hop up and, travel around and cover a cool story on some area, that's great. I just can't do that right now. So if I could get more support for the podcast, my goal would be to be fully this podcast is everything. And this, supports, kind of supports me and supports the family sort of thing. But that's kind of more of a long term. So I'll talk a little more about kind of that, but that's basically why the sponsors are there. They're there to kind of support the show and provide you with some value, products that, that are valuable, to you. So that's another big part of it. What else do we have here? I've got this little list here I'm kind of checking off. This is the one thing. It's kind of funny because the outline, I guess I do have an outline with my guests. Typically I come in with about 20 questions that I'm going to talk about. And the funny thing is I just, let's see, interview Kelly Gallup. Is that going to be? Yeah. So actually the episode this week that is out already is Kelly Gallup. And on his, I had the 20 questions. And I think I noted in the show that I think we were an hour into it and I had only checked off 2 questions. So it was just one of those episodes that was just awesome. And we were just talking, just chatting and BSing. One of the big things I just want to announce here before I get into, and what I have coming up here is a few interviews from like I said, fans that are in the audience. And I also want to get your take to see if, this sort of podcast where maybe it's more me talking about some topic, or BSing about something, or doing something different than just the typical interviews I do, or mixing it up, doing a half and half, or maybe do you like that it's an hour long episodes or an hour and a half, or would you rather me cut that into little 10 or 15 minute bite-sized bits and publish an episode every week? There's a good one for you. I'd like to hear an answer for that. And one other idea I'd like to find out about is potentially, as these shows get longer, if we split it up into part 1 and part 2, if that would be good. So you can check back and let me know on that. I wanted to follow up with the Patreon page a little more and just give you a little bit of a rundown what it looks like if you go to, again, wetflyswing.com/Patreon. So you can start, there's basically 4 different tiers. And right now, tier number 1, for $1 per month, you essentially get the opportunity to send in questions for our guests. So currently, I'm kind of doing a lot of this just on my own, picking up the questions, but you can actually, if you have a hot topic you want answered for a certain guest, you'll know they're coming and you can ask those. If you want, this is kind of a little fun thing, if you want to get a shout out to yourself or whatever you have going out there, I'll provide that opportunity every episode. And then finally, I'll have a Patreon-only Discord chat room. So we'll be able to chat, within the group. So it's kind of that private group again to keep that conversation going. So those are a couple of the bonuses. And I guess I shouldn't go too deep into all these, but the tier 5 is basically for $5 per episode. You get everything above, plus you get access to bonus episodes each month. So that's pretty cool. There's going to be some stuff that I'm going to do on the side. It might be outtakes. It just might be a bonus guest, all sorts of things. The next level, tier 3, you get listen to the episodes early, basically, and I can go into more of that. And the final one is just more of a live chat where I actually sit down and we talk about, again, some of the more specific questions you have, and we try to get those answered for you directly. So we're going to get into the first interview here. And I think I'm going to start off with Dave Harrison. I've got all sorts of cool stories. I don't know. I guess I could probably just look. Maybe I should do that really quick. Look on Instagram because that's kind of where I'm most active, and just see some people that have commented on some of the posts. Let's just see what we got here. I'll just go to my posts, and it's not booting up very fast, so that's not good on the air. But as soon as it does, I will look at some of those. But, it's just cool because I'm getting feedback, positive, and I do get some negative feedback. I have had some on some stuff that has come up, and so that's not always good. Take a drink break. But, the one thing I'm realizing right now as I'm doing this, I think I'm 20 minutes into this? No, feels like it. Only like 12. But I'm doing a lot of talking, and it is fun to talk. But that's what I'm realizing right now is that my guests are doing most of the talking, and I don't really talk as much. So yeah, that's one different thing. But so I think I'm just going to jump right into Dave and let him let you hear the conversation. We talk about some pretty good stuff. Dave's got some. He's kind of a good storyteller. But Dave is a guy who reached out to me and he asked me how he could help the show. So it was a pretty amazing thing. So let's just jump into Dave and meet this awesome guy, and we'll move on.
How's it going, Dave?
Going great, Dave.
Good to have you. I've been reaching out to a few different people, basically the people that I've made a good connection with, probably more than others. And some have been, I think Glen is this guy who's like, he's a guide and he wants to become a guide, and it's like his whole thing. And I always think about him whenever I have a question that comes up about guiding. And then I have a few other people. You're somebody who connected to me because you were interested in helping the podcast. You watched the show, and so I think it's pretty awesome to have you on here to chat about this. But before,
I love what I'm learning from the show. It's great. I appreciate it. You put education first, and that's right.
Yep, that's pretty much what I'm kind of my main goal. Before we dig in, I have a few questions just about the show itself. Maybe you can just talk about how you got into fly fishing.
Well, it's funny. I think I caught my first steelhead when I was 12. I remember because my dad thought I was snagged up. It was on a river in Northwest Washington, and then when we saw the fish, he gets excited. He jumps in the water and grabs that steelhead. This is in December,
Ooh.
Like a bear. Scoops it up and brings it to shore. Yeah, it was pretty neat. And that's the last time I went fishing for about another 25 years. I spent some time in California. I had a mortgage, $3,600 a month, and that was back in the early 2000s. And I was getting an ulcer. I couldn't breathe. I was really stressed out. And I came back to Oregon. I fished on Lost Lake with my dad there in the slope there, Mount Hood. And I found for the first time in years I could take a deep breath. I was just looking around at the blue of the water and the green trees, and I felt at peace. I was like, this is what I was missing. So we moved back, started a family here in Oregon, and fishing's a big part of my life. I love it.
Huh. Oh, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, quite a little break, but you came back. You didn't leave it. I mean, in all those time, in that 25 years, did you ever never wet a line down in California or anywhere down there?
No. I think I went on a tuna trip once with my buddy, and you know how it is on those tuna trips. It's a couple days. We were kind of on the outs at the time. We had a fight, and you can't stay mad at each other too long on a tuna trip.
Yeah.
So after enough whiskey and beer, all was forgiven. So that was a good trip. I remember that still.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. Cool. So
I remember there was one guy who was so drunk. he fell out of the top bunk, and there's like 3 bunks. So you're falling down about 9 feet, right? Onto a hard surface. He was fine.
Jeez.
That man was flexible,
Wow. So this is a boat now. So the tuna trips I've been on are like you go out like a few hours and then you turn around, you catch your fish and come back. So you're out on like a bigger boat.
Yeah, it probably fits about 20 people or so, and we were going out about 30 miles out of San Diego.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's not, it's not that type of fishing really isn't for me. There's people that love it, the blue water fishing.
Yeah.
But for me, you're just winching up fish, and it's kind of an agony the whole time.
Cool.
But,
cool.
Yeah.
No, it's cool. A big part of this show is about the stories, and I think about like down the line, where where this show might go. And who knows? I mean, it's all about fly fishing now, but maybe down the line we'll get into more blue water, and other stuff. I don't know. I'm kind of keeping it open. I think there's enough fly fishing topics to cover that'll probably keep me going for 20 years, I would imagine.
Yeah, that I've always found it. Always the stories about fishing that are the most fun to tell is just about the people and the encounters you have. I was in Garibaldi last week, and I was there at the grocery store stocking up, and I overheard a guy say to another guy, "It's like, look, I haven't changed at all since I became a manager. I mean, if I seem grumpy some mornings, it's just because I'm drunk." And he was dead serious.
Really?
Oh, it was a great story. Yeah, no, that actually happened. It was. I laughed so hard.
Wow.
Yeah, stories like that. I love it.
That's the Coastie, man. That's the Coasties people right there.
Yeah. Yeah,
cool.
that's hardcore.
Nice. Well, let's dig into a little bit on the podcast. What do you think? You mentioned you watch the show, you like it. What do you think is the biggest thing, or a few things that you like, or maybe a few episodes that stick out that you like about the show?
I think probably some of the episodes I've enjoyed the most, especially the check nymphing one.
Oh yeah,
it gave some practical ideas on like how to set up your rigging. I've been check nymphing for years now, and I do it all the time on Deschutes. And it's a great way of kind of getting away from the crowd. So you're fishing water a lot of people don't touch. Mm-hmm. But I've been doing it wrong. So it completely changed the way I'm going to be doing my trout fishing come June on the Deschutes. Yeah, it's very helpful.
Cool. Is there anything that, when you think about the show that, things you would change or ways you can make it better? Anything that it's missing, or topics or anything like that?
No, and like you say, the more stories, I think probably the better. I enjoyed the interview you had with Jack over there at the Evening Hatch.
Oh yeah,
he's full of personality and character, and I love that. Yeah, that kind of saltiness. That brings joy to my heart.
Mm-hmm.
We love the Rascals, and Jack's just as good of a guy as they come on the river. He really knows to click a tad and that region. So got a lot of respect for him.
Yep. No, it's cool. It's funny because I think one of the hardest things for me doing the interviews is, well, probably for anybody interviewing, is when you get a guest that maybe isn't the most, maybe they're not on their A game, and you just gotta find a way to bring it out of them. And I guess there's some guests that maybe aren't the best guests to have on. So that's I think I've struggled with that a few times, but I don't know. I mean,
well,
yeah.
And if you're interviewing an active guide, you're not getting the real stories.
No.
They can't sanitize it. And nobody wants to go with a guide and then hear about themselves later. So they have great stories. I would love to read a book one day where it's like unfiltered. Here's what happened on this trip,
Yep.
But I don't think that book's possible, just because if you're still actively guiding, you can't put that down on paper.
Right. Yep.
So, yeah.
Cool.
But it is entertaining.
I know. I have some good stories coming up. The next few guests, tomorrow is going to be John Gierach, and he starts off. I haven't done this at the start, but I've been adding a little short clip, 30-second clip at the start of each episode, which I think is kind of a, whatever you call it, it's the hook or something that's interesting. And John explains what it was like in one of those Alaskan float planes when he thought he was kind of going down. And,
right.
Well, yeah, and it's just he's a good storyteller, so he tells some good story. I mean, like having him on was easy. You know what I mean? The hard part was cutting it. Yeah, I mean the hard part was cutting the show short, and it was actually, I think it might be an hour and a half long.
Wow.
But that was the hard part. I could have talked for 4 hours.
So original. Yeah. And to me he's the real deal. Like what he talks about. It rings true. Like he's actually done it and lived that life. It's not a life I think I would like to live, but I'm a little envious that he was able to lead that.
Yep. Well, you'll hear it tomorrow. But he basically, a lot of the reason he got to why he led that life is that his dad basically was too busy working most of his life, and he didn't want to be like his dad. His dad didn't have enough time to fish, and he wanted to make sure that in his life he would have plenty of time. And so yeah. Anyways,
that's kind of how I feel too. Like I think everyone looks at their father and they think, well, what does Dad do that I really love? And What does he do that I really don't want to repeat? You know, and my dad is a very good fisherman, you know, in particular on his home water, there in Northwest Washington, you know, but I don't know if he's put in as much time on the water as he probably would have liked in the last few years. So that's something. Yeah.
Exactly.
The another part I really like about the podcast, you have that downloadable material on kind of lessons you've learned and things. That was really helpful. I read through that as far as steelheading. There's a lot of tips there.
Some of the tips. Well, it's funny you say that, because this is actually, I was going to ask you a little bit off the air, but I'll just ask you now. I'm in the process. I've done some free PDF downloads just to kind of, you know, help people, give them more information, but also collect their emails and keep track, you know, keep in touch with them, because it's the easiest way to keep in touch with people is via email. So that's the reason I've done it. But what I'm doing now is actually taking it another step further, and I'm going to be producing an actual real full on ebook. You know, it's a book. It might even be published eventually as a physical book, but right now it's just going to be a full ebook. So, yeah, that will be. I think I only hit on a few guests for the first thing, but this will be all 30 guests, and basically their top tips, their top flies, and some of their resources for. So it'll be like season 1 of the podcast, all in one book.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that would be.
And that's really, you know, the best fishermen that I've ever read. They have in Buddhism they call it a beginner's mind. And that means you're open to, like, I have a friend of mine who's just an unnatural fisherman. He has this skill. He can pick up fish in a mud puddle. I've never seen anything like it. I can see his rod tip moving. It's like an antenna. You know what I mean? And he's just on it. But he is always mixing it up a little bit. He's always trying something new, and he's always trying to learn. And a lot of those lessons, they're just not in books.
No.
You know, like later I'll go and I'll ask him, I'll say, you know, Don, you pulled 2 fish out there and you gave me the first 5 casts. What did I do wrong? And he says, oh, you weren't using enough weight, you know, or, you know, you were doing this. It's something I wasn't paying attention to. And it makes all the difference. And then he put his hand on my shoulder and said, Dave, just remember, I'm just like you, only successful.
That's nice. That's a good friend.
Like that, man.
Exactly. That's perfect. Nice. Well, let's jump into a couple of my typical questions I ask all my guests. If you had to pick one go-to fly, what would it be? You could say steelhead or trout.
Bugger.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It has to be a black woolly bugger. Yeah. I mean, that'll hook anything.
Yep.
I'd go for tarpon with that. They'd make the hook big enough.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the fly. That is one of the flies. What about your, do you have a bucket list location or species?
I really love traveling up to Alaska.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love to go to Patagonia someday and fish like Jurassic Lake and all that.
Yep.
I got to tell you, I feel like I've only just barely scrape the surface of what's out here, right here in Oregon.
I know.
So my goal for next year is not to spend all this time. I like to have at least a, 1 to 4 ratio of drive time to fishing time. And I really would like to explore the Donner to Blitzen. I'd like to touch some of these rivers that I know are wonderful and that I've never seen before, but right here in Oregon.
Yeah. That's one of
There's
the
a lot to shoot.
There is. That's one of the things that I've definitely covered. I haven't got all around the world, but I've covered Oregon pretty much the whole thing. And yeah, I can tell you that for sure. I've been on the Donner and Blitzen, and there's tons of really cool lakes out there. Oregon's a pretty, because you mix it up. You got the desert, and then you got the west side. So it's a pretty unique mix. And summer steelhead, winter or steelhead. I mean, we don't have a lot of some of the other species that you hear a lot about. The muskie and some of those kind of big, crazy, fish. But yeah, for trout, I think we're doing pretty good.
I feel like this last season, for whatever reason, a switch got flipped, and I started picking up steelhead. I started having a lot more confidence than I have in the past. It was like I turned a corner a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of that is just kind of watching my friends and just kind of learning to have confidence. I'm not spending as much time walking around to new water or changing my flies. I'm sticking with what I know, and I know the speed will get them if I just am patient enough.
Yep. Yeah, that's a cool thing about it. And all the guests I've had, the first 30 with all the steelhead, I've actually been listening back through them again, which is kind of funny. I'm trying to, as I write this book, I'm trying to make sure to get all the best tips. And yeah, Scott McGarva, episode 17, that guy is awesome. He really laid it out. It's just the stuff you're talking about there about how, pick one fly. That's, you don't need to mess with the flies. And then, start in close, cover that water in tight. You don't have to do the hero casting. He just broke everything down really nicely. And yeah, that's probably one of my favorite episodes. He talked about the Dean, which is one of those destination rivers.
Oh, beautiful.
Which I would love to get up to.
And it's funny. I mean, I do feel like there's something to, at some point your fly color does change around October, November on the Deschutes, for example. You're going to want to go more darker colors, right? But I was on a trip with Rob Crandall there at Watertight Outfitters in September around the Max Canyon area in the Deschutes. And we had 2 flies the whole time, and that was it. There was one that was kind of more like a green butt skunk, but it was darker without those colors, kind of a light wet fly. And then there was more of a light intruder.
Yep.
And with a lot of black and kind of a little bit of blue in the base. And that was it. He says, if they're there, we're going to get them. Yep. And I noticed when I look up and down the river, when it's crowded, I'm thinking about 3 out of every 4 people have their heads down looking through their fly box. That magical fly.
Wow.
And that's wasted time.
Yeah, it is.
So just have confidence in what you fish.
It is. Yeah. It is for sure. Cool. Well, that is about all I have. I just wanted to touch base with you and, thank you for supporting the show and reaching out and letting me know you're there to help. So I think we're going to probably be, maybe next year finding some stuff to work together on, at least on the show. I know I've got a lot of ideas and there's no way I could possibly do everything on my own. So yeah, we're going to definitely keep in touch. So we'll just take it from there, I guess.
That sounds great. Thanks, Dave. I really appreciate it.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right. See ya.
Okay. Thanks, Dave, for that great conversation. Now, up next is Glen Zarboni. Glen is a cool guy that I've been chatting with again. I'm not sure where. I think we connected on Facebook, I believe. And Glen just has, you just hear that passion. He's just ready. He's ready to go all in. So we talk a little bit about guiding, but he's the guy that one of the guys I think of when I'm trying to think of guiding questions for some of these guides. So take it away, Glen. Let's hear what we have to say. How's it going, Glen?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Yeah. Good to have you on here. We've been chatting for a little while on Facebook and on social a little bit about what you have going, and you're a guide. And I've been trying to, as I've been interviewing some of my guests, thinking about some of the questions you've had and trying to propose those to some of my guests. So it's kind of cool to have you on here now to ask you some questions directly. So this is going to be fun.
Cool.
So maybe you can just talk a little bit briefly about how you got into fly fishing and then how guiding came to be.
Okay, well, I got into fly fishing when I moved to the Adirondacks. Me and my wife were just, driving around, and I saw a bunch of people out in the river fly fishing, and I've been a fisherman my whole life. And when I saw it, I was like, wow, I got to try this. So I stopped in at the local Orvis store, took a fly fishing 101 class, and was hooked ever since.
Mm-hmm. And Orvis is that's pretty cool. The Orvis 101 class, that was like a just kind of intro to fly fishing. Did it include fly tying? What did that class entail?
It was basically a 20-minute class. About 10 minutes of it was basic casting. They taught us a couple of knots. They gave us $50 off an Orvis Clearwater rod if you took the class.
Uh-huh.
And basically that was it. So
Wow.
I ended up buying an Orvis Learn to Fly Fishing book. And I went from there. I pretty much learned everything on my own.
That's cool. And now you ran across the podcast somewhere along the way, and so what do you think has been, when you look at, you know, the episodes that we've had on, what do you think has been the biggest thing you've enjoyed about the show so far?
What I like the best is the history. Jim Teeney. I like Rob Snowhite because he fishes the same rivers that I fish out here in the Salmon River. Deck Hogan was really good. I really like that one. I really like the history. A lot of the tips are really great. Listening to the guys on how stuff has come from like 30, 40 years ago up until the present day, and, you know, different techniques. And I really like the Euro nymphing. So when you had Devin Olson on, that was really good.
Yeah. What's your take on, this is kind of a random question, but your take on like competition fly fishing and Team USA and all that stuff? You ever heard much about that?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. They've been here in Lake Placid, which is about an hour from my house. So I've gone twice, and I've watched it.
Oh, cool.
It's really, really good. And the guys are very, very firm. They're not afraid to give you tips and techniques. Once their beat is done, then, you know, they're willing to answer all kinds of questions for you. So,
that's great.
I really appreciated that. Yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, I've been trying to get Russell Miller, I think, will be on. He was going to do a little bit of a summary from the 2018 tournament this year, so I might have him on to do a little summary there. But that's cool. Now, and what about on the podcast? Do you think, is there anything that you think of that, you know, you might be able to change about the show, or any different episodes that you might like to hear about?
Well, I think you're on the right track by starting off with the steelheading, and then, you know, you're in the trout series right now. So I think if you continue along that line, maybe do bass fishing or warm water, salt fishing, stuff like that. I think that, you know, will grab a lot of different listeners.
Yeah.
And I'm a sponge, so I'm willing to learn just about anything that's that you got going. I really enjoy everything that you've done so far.
That's cool. No, I appreciate the support. And do you think, you know, it's funny because they're on like Apple, you know, which is kind of, do you listen on an Apple device or on another type of device?
No, I listen on my Apple phone.
Yeah. So you have an Apple phone. So iTunes, you know, that whole Apple podcast, I think it's something like 70% of the people listen, you know, that listen to the podcast, listen to some sort of a device there. And Apple has this like Connect thing where I can like go in and find out how long people listen, just get some statistics on it. But it's funny, is I've had a little glitch, so I haven't actually seen that yet. But when you listen to an episode, do you typically listen to just like short parts of it, or the whole thing, or how long do you typically listen?
Well, my commute to work is about an hour.
Okay.
So I listen to as long as I can, and then on my way back, I'll finish. If I didn't finish up the episode, I'll finish it, and then I'll start another one.
Oh, cool.
So it all depends on how long your episodes go for.
Yep. So are you good then? I mean, I've started out my episodes kind of around an hour. Are you good some of these episodes getting up to an hour and a half?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like I said, once I'm done, like if I get to work early, well then I'll listen to it in the break room. If not, on my way home, then I'll finish up whatever I didn't finish.
Gotcha.
So if you went an hour and a half, 2 hours, I'd listen no matter what.
Yep. Nice. No, it's good to hear. That's kind of how I listen as well. So that's cool. Now on flies, do you have like one go-to fly pattern for trout?
Yep. My go-to fly for trout is called the Ausable Ugly. It's a local pattern. It was developed by a gentleman who's a local guide named Richard Garfield, and just amazing fly. It's all around. It's a modified woolly bugger, and it gets the job done.
Yep. All right. And what is, when you think of a bucket list, do you have a place or a species that you want to hit sometime?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be Alaska, and I want to get up and get some giant rainbow trout, maybe on some mice patterns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would be cool. I was trying to think again. I've got a Alaska guest coming on, and I'll definitely mousing was one topic. I'm not sure if she covers it, but it's something I might I will definitely cover if she does some fishing up there. But yeah, I think Alaska, I could probably do a whole season on Alaska if you think about it.
Oh, I'm sure you could. Yep, for sure.
Cool. So, okay. And what do you think now, on top of the season, like a destination type season, would a fly tying season? I was just thinking that the guys, who are they? Fly Fish Food guys. They came out with a podcast, and I actually had one of their, I had them on an episode, but I've noticed that their podcast, they haven't been updating lately, and it's all fly tying. I wonder if I had a fly tying season, would that be interesting to you, hearing from people about and talking about fly tying specifically?
Oh, for sure. I'm an avid fly tyer myself. So getting tips and tricks, from big name tires, that would be awesome.
That would. Okay.
Especially if you went into the history of fly design and stuff like that. That catches my interest anyway.
That is a great. I'm not sure if you listened to the Tom. I think it was episode 19. Let me see if I can grab it real quick here. It was the episode he went into a little bit of history on steelhead flies. And I just listened to it again. Yeah, I just listened to it again because I'm kind of going through and trying to. I'm doing a little, I'm kind of updating one of my ebooks, kind of a PDF ebook, so I'm trying to get some of the tips that I missed, but I'm just looking at it now. It's episode, no, it wasn't 19, it was, it was 18, sorry, Tom Perro.
Yep.
Yeah, Tom Perro, and he went into some of the history on, the whole Atlantic salmon flies and how steelhead flies came from the trout flies, basically, of the time. But no, I love that stuff too. I'm hoping to do a little more of that as I can, finding guests that can talk about that. So that's good to hear. I'm on the right track there. So is there anything else?
Oh, for sure.
Go ahead.
I really enjoyed your episode with Jim Teeny and his development of the Teeny fly. That was very interesting.
That's right. Yeah. So does the Teeny? I know he's been out in that area. Had you heard of the Teeny net before that?
No, I didn't. So I did a lot of research after that podcast, and it's a very simple fly.
Yep.
And it's very effective here too. I've tied a few, and very, very effective.
Oh, no kidding.
I enjoy it.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I'll tell Jim about that. Yeah, he's an old friend of the family, and definitely was one of the guys that was part of the whole inventing the early sinking lines, which was pretty cool back in the 70s.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, that's good. Okay, well, let's see here. Those were kind of a couple of the main questions. Anything else you think about? I'm kind of in the process of not changing anything, but I have somebody that reached out to me, and he was a listener, and he wanted to find out if he can do anything to help the show. And I might bring him on just to help, because it takes a lot of work, the scheduling, the guests. I mean, it is a lot of work, and maybe bring him on and maybe even do some sort of have a down the line, maybe some sort of a co-host. I'm not even sure. I mean, what would you think if you brought on, if there was a kind of a double, like a co-host thing? Would that be, I think, a valid way to go?
Sure. I think you're very interesting. The guests that you've had on are really great. You're providing a ton of information. And I think it's information from beginners to even seasoned. I mean, I'm a guide.
Yeah.
And I'm still learning quite a bit from your podcast. And
cool.
Guys that have been out there for 50, 60 years, they can offer a lot of information that anybody can use.
Yeah.
So, and I think you keep it interesting.
Yep.
The names that you're bringing up are phenomenal. Everybody from, Phil Rowley was really good.
Oh, yeah.
Your fly tire, I can't pronounce his last. I think it was Tim Camisa.
Oh, Camisa, yeah.
Yeah, he was really good. Very interesting,
Uh-huh. Yeah, he's a powerhouse.
So he is. I watch him on his videos and stuff, and very, very good.
That's the cool thing.
The fact that you're getting all these big names in. April Vokey was one of my favorite podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
She's very interesting.
Yep. Cool. Well, I'll just give you.
I think you're on the right track.
I'll give you a rundown of my upcoming guests, just so you have a little. Well, you'll get a head start before for anybody else here. Let me see if I can get to it here, and I'll give you a little update. See if I'm continuing on the track, because I'm going to be mixing it up a little bit, but. So I have, next week I've got a pretty big guest. I'm not sure if you've read much of John Gierock, but he's coming on next week. He's kind of...
he's kind of
he's on my bucket list to start reading.
Yeah. He's I haven't read a ton of his stuff either, but he's just got some pretty entertaining stuff. But we got into a whole conversation that was just almost off of fly fishing. But so basically, I'm gonna look at the next 5 guests up until this episode will come. It'll be John Gierach, Landon Mayer is going to talk about streamers. Cool. I've got Gary Lewis coming on, who I don't know if a lot of people know. He has a TV show, outdoor show. We're going to talk about, kind of get into some stuff. Actually, we're going to talk a little bit about hunting, which is kind of funny. That's going to mix it up a little bit. And then I have a Project Healing Waters guest, and then I have Peter from Ascent Fly Fishing, who is actually one of the sponsors of the show. So that's kind of that. Those will be the guests up until I post this one with you and the gang. So it's pretty diverse.
Sweet, that sounds good. Good. A little bit about Peter from Ascent Fishing, so that sounds pretty good. Okay,
and so on the one last thing before I let you go, on the you probably listened to some of the episodes now that I've had the sponsors. Is that working out as far as not too annoying? I just want to make sure they're kind of helping to support the show. Have you heard any of those episodes where I do the ad rolls?
Yeah, and I think it's perfect. If they're going to be sponsoring you, then you definitely have to mention them. And I don't think it hurts your show one bit at all.
Oh, cool. Good. That's good to hear. Okay. Well, I mean, Glenn, I appreciate you. I definitely, like I said, when I ask questions now, because I've talked to a few guys, but we've talked a lot, your name comes up in my mind when I'm trying to get answers for when it comes up to guiding. So I don't talk, obviously the episodes aren't all guiding, but occasionally I like to ask that question, like, how do people do it? So you might hear that. You might hear it in my voice as the new episodes come up that, you're kind of in the back of my mind thinking about the questions. So I'll try to do my best to keep kind of serving you and doing my best to give you some stuff to help you. Maybe I think your ultimate goal is to kind of quit the day job and go all in on guiding, right?
That's correct.
All right.
Hopefully within the next 2 or 3 years.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to keep an eye on you, and when that happens, I definitely give me an email or give me a call, because I want to follow up with you on that.
Oh, sweet. I appreciate that very much.
All right, Glenn. Well, that's all I got for you. Definitely, just again, thanks for helping supporting the show, and we'll keep in touch.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and continued success.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye.
All right. Thanks, Glenn. That was pretty awesome. I mean, just the passion and the support. That's pretty cool to hear. I don't want to make this sound like kind of a love fest. I mean, it's a celebration episode, but really appreciate all the kind words there. And I mean, I think obviously a lot of the stuff, as I noted, that when I think about in this show for guides, Glenn is one of the guys I think about kind of planning for, so it makes sense. And again, at Hook'em Solid Guide Service, if you want to find Glenn. Up next is Josh Clausen. And Josh has also a ton of experience with fly fishing. I guess that's the more I get into this, the more I realize a lot of the people that listen to the show are actually have a ton of experience. I haven't caught with, I have talked to kind of beginners, but don't have them here so far. But Josh is going to talk to us. He's coming from Wisconsin. We'll get into some of the driftless area, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to sit back and sip a beer, crack one here, and we'll listen to Josh. How's it going, Josh?
Pretty good. How are you doing, Dave?
Good. Yeah, this is our this is kind of the year celebration. It's been 52 episodes now doing the podcast, so I'm trying to do a little bit of outreach to people in the community, those that I've connected with, and we've touched base on Instagram, and just want to ask you a few questions about a little bit about the podcast and your background, if that sounds good.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Maybe you could just start, starting off, would you rather talk a little bit about maybe a story that influenced you in fly fishing, or maybe just talk about your background in fly fishing or how you got into it?
Yeah. I actually grew up in North Dakota, of all places, and there's not a lot of fly fishing opportunity there, at least in your classic sense. So I must have been 6 or 7, and like a lot of people in my era, River Runs Through It came out, and it just sparked an interest in fly fishing. My dad was a traditional fisherman, a gear fisherman, back there, and I wanted to learn how to fly fish. I had no one around to teach me or anything, so back then I used to work for my grandpa for $2 an hour on the weekends. And I saved up my money and purchased like a Walmart Martin combo, fly rod combo. And we had a river in our backyard that had like bullheads and catfish, just kind of rough fish in it. And I'd go down there and try and fly cast and trying to teach myself how to do things with a fly rod. And that was where I started, fishing for moon eyes and gold eyes were about the only thing that would take a fly out of there. And about that same time, I started tying flies as well. But being where I was located in North Dakota, I wasn't able to realistically chase any cold water species. So I became more of a warm water fly fisherman, and then taking periodic trips around the country as I got older to chase trout, mainly trout. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, me and my anniversary is in October, and that's when the steelhead run on the Brule in Wisconsin. It's a Lake Superior tributary. So me and my wife went up there for our anniversary, which was actually pretty cool, about 4 or 5 years ago, and kind of fell in love with Wisconsin and relocated my family down here and have been just stomping around the driftless for the last few years, chasing a lot of stream trout, and then in the spring and fall, Lake Michigan tributary fish and Lake Superior fish too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Awesome. So you're right in the Great Lakes. There's definitely, I've had a few guests on that we've talked about some of that area. Have you heard any of those? I'm not sure if any of those were directly with Wisconsin, but I think we had some Michigan.
No, there's a couple out of Michigan. It was Pete Humphreys.
Yeah,
that episode was good. Just they fish differently over there. They're fishing out of boats. The trips around here are a little smaller, so we're wade fishing. But dude, I picked up the spay game, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago as well.
Yep.
And really got into that. I actually spent last weekend up on the Brule swinging flies. But yeah, I mean,
that's cool. Yeah, we're in now that I'm in kind of season 2, I guess when we're doing this, it's, we're kind of, I guess I just had a Frank Moore on who is a steelheader, so I still have some guests out there, but I've been focusing on trout lately. When we talk about the podcast, is there anything that, when you think about it specifically, either an episode or a part of the show, that you've enjoyed, that kind of sticks out to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a handful. There's a lot of good episodes that you've got in your archives, if you will. I've listened to quite a few of them. Yeah, like you said, the first season was all steelhead, and that's something I haven't yet to do, is the actually saltwater run steelhead, Pacific Northwest. So it's very interesting, all of it, learning a lot, just picking up different things from individual people or guests that you have on. I guess generally towards the end of each episode, you throw just some rapid fire questions out, favorite fly, home, river, things of that nature. You get a little more intimate knowledge of the guest and kind of really what their take on it is. It's a little more personal at that point. And just picking up different fly patterns, things of that nature, things to sit down and try and tie, dreaming about some Pacific Northwest trip in the future. But there's been some of the old time guys you've had on too. It's cool to hear the history. Yeah. I mean, even that one, I believe it was your father, was on, and if I remember right, he came up with the Max Canyon pattern. That's right. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's funny because I was doing some just online research, gearing up for fall and stuff, and I'd actually tied up 5 or 6 of them, and that was really neat. Just to, like, that's your dad. He invented that fly that I had tied recently. Nice. That was kind of a cool deal. Another one that I thought was really cool was the one with April Volke. And I listened to her podcast as well, Anchored, and it's cool to hear the host of another podcast on a podcast.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And just, she's so cool too. Just everything that she does. Yeah. She's a very unique person. But that was a good one. Anything that gets really techie, kind of high level stuff, casting dynamics with Line Speed Jedi one, that was really cool to get in the dynamics of the spay cast. Even was it Davey Wotton?
Wotton? Yeah, Wotton, yeah.
Traditional wet flies, and running a team of flies across, and the different ways that they would fish those overseas, and kind of bringing some of that knowledge into the single hand game around here. And then there was one you had on where a guy really dived into lines, different line companies and manufacturer of lines.
Yeah, Barney Wong.
Yeah, that was pretty neat too. What was the other one? Summer Steelhead.
Oh, yeah, Tom Larimer.
Absolutely. That getting in where he was talking about different vegetation on the bank and sun position.
Isn't that crazy?
Stuff like that.
Yeah, I know.
It is. It really makes you stop and think. And you don't hear a lot of that out there on any podcast getting into that level of detail. And that's, I mean, doing this for over 20 years, just the fly fishing thing, it puts new perspective on things that I've maybe never thought about, and really kind of makes me take their experience and apply it to my scenario.
Yeah, no, that's cool. Those are great insights for sure, because that's something I try to get out, that comes out sometimes, and I don't always get those nice tips, but yeah, some of the guests have shared some really cool stuff, and I've heard some awesome stories. People definitely have, well, like yours there with the Max Canyon is pretty cool. I had one where a guy, I think he was also, he was Great Lakes. He said he had never swung flies over there, and after listening to a couple of the episodes, he picked it up and he caught his first 5 steelhead. I think maybe he caught 3 on one trip or something. And he emailed me back, was like, man, wow. Yeah, totally. It was like, man, that's amazing. I mean, and this show basically for me is just what you described. I mean, that's kind of why I'm here, is just to help get some of that knowledge out so people can, learn a little bit, think differently. And so it's good to hear that that's resonating with you, Loa. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah, no, it's cool.
Yeah. So I was thinking just a little more about, I guess, well, there's one side of it as far as some of the, some of the good stuff. If you think about the show, anything that maybe you would change or add, or topics or anything that comes to mind when you think about, maybe a way that, we can make it better?
I mean, I think you do a very good job with it. The guests, you got a good lineup of guests coming on, very knowledgeable people. There's a lot of information that comes out. I don't know, broaden the horizons a little bit, I guess. I mean, I love the steelhead episodes. I love the trout stuff. I mean, you're thinking anything, other species. Obviously, your focus for season 1 was more of the steelhead game. Season 2 was all trout.
Yep. No, I am. I'm focusing actually season 3. I've been hinting at it a little bit, trying to get people's feedback, but pretty sure I'm going to do a DIY, like a destination sort of season.
Oh, very cool.
So so I've already got,
that'd be excellent.
Oh, cool. So I'm going to do like, I've got a few already. I've got like a bonefish, one, I've got like a giant trevally and some Argentina stuff. So I'm trying to, and the DIY thing is a little bit tough with saltwater. So I might even do like a muskie. So I don't know. Yeah. If you had any ideas as far as, like destination or DIY type, episodes I could do, that'd be cool. We keep in touch online.
Yeah, right on. No, I used to chase walleyes on Devil's Lake, North Dakota in the spring with fly gear. Just no one's doing it. No one ever does it. You hear a lot about people chasing pike, northern pike, as well as muskies, the big predatory fish, but never really hear anything about walleyes, and they're a predator and they eat bait fish, and why wouldn't they eat a streamer?
Exactly.
They don't exactly jump out of the water. One on smallies would be cool too. You know, I mean, there's so many classifications of smallie water too. If you're fishing big lakes, big rivers, small rivers, they all kind of have their own dynamic.
Yeah, they do. No, that's cool. What is, if you think about your, say your go-to fly pattern, do you have one that I guess we were talking, what's the species you chase most often?
Down here, browns and brook trout in the spring creeks.
Cool. Do you have a fly that's kind of your go-to?
Go-to down here depends on the time of year.
How about this time?
This time of year, season's closed.
Oh, it is. It's totally closed. Really?
Yeah, closes.
Oh, yeah, because it's fall. Yeah, because you're chasing browns. Yep. That's right.
Yep,
so I guess it's going to open up in the spring or winter, late winter.
They have a catch and release season, opens up January 1.
Okay.
And then first Sunday in May. And that time of year, I mean, anything topwater is going to be midges, but subsurface stuff, all your nymphs work.
Okay.
I've got, just as far as a go-to fly around here that seems to always work. I mean, granted, I really like catching fish up on top, but one that really seems to always catch fish, it's a pattern I came up with myself. It's similar to a Frenchie. Think of an oversized zebra midge with a orange hot collar on it, out of dubbing. Pretty much what it is, golden pheasant tail on it. I it's funny because you talk to anyone from or about the driftless region and the fly pattern, the pink squirrel always comes up. It's essentially a hare's ear tied with squirrel hair and then a hot pink collar on it. If you can envision that, that's a pink squirrel.
Yeah.
I've always been one to not go with the flow, so I wanted to come up with my own pattern that worked just as good. And I believe I did with that one, and I call it the squirrel killer.
Nice.
But no, it's basically black dubbing with a gold rib, golden pheasant.
Okay.
Tail, and then orange, usually use Senio's laser dub, hot orange.
Yep.
And then a silver bead on it.
Perfect.
And just put a lot of fish to hand.
Nice. Do you have a bucket list place you'd like to go, destination anywhere in the world or species or anything comes to mind?
Taman in Mongolia or steelhead in Kamchatka.
Oh, nice.
Those are my 2 bucket list items.
Yep.
I got up to Alaska when I was like 15, and I was fly fishing at that point. My dad wasn't, but I went with him, and I tried to do everything fly fishing up there and got into a bunch of different species of fish. And so that was super cool. And I've been trying to get back up there ever since, but wife and kids and life kind of happened. And my kids are getting old enough now to where a couple of years now we'll get back out there with me and my boys.
Cool. Well, yeah, I think those were kind of a few of the questions I wanted to check in with you. I appreciate you supporting, the show and all the feedback here. I'll definitely keep in touch with you. Is there any, if people, do you have a website or anything you want to share to get out there, or anything where people can, find that stuff, or a local shop? I know the Driftless area is one place that I hopefully will have a guest to interview, hopefully sometime soon.
Yeah. I personally don't. I guess I got a YouTube channel called Saturdays in the Driftless. It's just something I throw some little videos together.
Nice.
I've been trying to do little video reports.
Awesome.
It's me out fishing and my kids.
Perfect. That's great.
Yeah, and I guess I don't know if you're probably not aware of this, but I'm affiliated with an ice fishing television show.
Oh, no kidding.
I don't know if we want to promote anything of that on here because it's not exactly related. But
if you want to, no, it's all good. Yeah, if you want to share.
Yeah. It's called Fish Addictions TV, based out of Grand Forks, North Dakota, originally where I'm from. And me and a buddy started it about 4 years ago, and it's kind of taken off. And
cool.
But yeah, it's something fun to do in the wintertime when it gets cold and everything's locked up around here.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was a guest on the Fish Nerds podcast. I'm not sure if you ever heard of that one, but he's got Fisher, and I think he's connected to the ice fishing. Maybe he had a guest on, but yeah, he's talked quite a bit about ice fishing. I think he actually is a guide. He's like an ice fishing guide.
Okay, cool.
Or something like that. So we chatted about, you might want to check in with him and see about maybe coordinating on, I don't know, getting on his show or chat. He's a pretty cool guy.
Right on. Yeah, that'd be cool.
So, all right, Josh. Well, I'll let you go. Just want to thank you again, and let's keep in touch as we move on here.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds good, man. Thanks for the opportunity.
You bet.
There you go. That was pretty good, Josh. Thanks for taking the time. As you can tell, it was pretty cool for me to hear, again, the talking about my dad and how that episode resonated with Josh as well. And so many other people out there. I guess it kind of hits on that family piece, and basically the same thing we're doing here with the podcast, just kind of creating a little community, a little family. So it's all good. It's kind of funny too with my dad. I've kind of out in our area out here, he's definitely known for especially the fly. We guided for a lot of years, but I've kind of gone into this, kind of trying to stay under the radar and kind of doing this thing on my own. And I've done that, and now obviously the word's getting out a little bit that I've got a little background there, so that's cool. But we're gonna jump into the next one with Steve, and this one is another great conversation I had. Steve is a veteran. He's part of Project Healing Waters, and he tells this story about the issues he has waiting in the stream for steelhead because of his injuries. And, this one really resonates with me, especially as I have a Project Healing Waters episode coming up. So I hope you enjoy, and here's Steve.
How's it going, Steve?
Good, Dave. Good to finally talk to you.
Yeah. This is pretty cool. I'm starting to get around and check in with a few of the listeners and people that listen to the podcast that I've connected with down the line. And I can't remember when we first connected, but we've been chatting a little bit on email and social and stuff like that. So yeah, we're just going to dig into a little bit of your history. Do you want to tell us maybe first how you got into fly fishing and kind of where you're at these days?
Oh gosh, well. Really, I started with hot and heavy with Project Healing Waters up here at JBLM with the group here. Chuck Ty was he's also the regional coordinator and the leader for the group out of here, and that's the one I really started hot and heavy with those guys. But the main reason I got up here to the Pacific Northwest was for the fishing. I was in the military, and I picked a unit that was up here. Unfortunately, the unit I went to was the unit that lived in the field, so I never got to fish. Huh. But after retirement and trying to heal up and get whole again, I linked up with the Project Healing Water guys, and those guys have really got me going. So cool. That's how we got it.
Cool. And you're up in Washington State?
Yeah, right outside Joint Base Lewis McChord.
Oh, right. So what is the closest, and you do a little bit of steelhead fishing, is that usually what you're doing?
Yeah, we try and get down. There's in the group that I'm in, there's a lot of good steelhead fishermen. So, I go out with those guys, and, these guys are just phenomenal. They teach me all kinds of stuff, and these guys, they do center pinning and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten into all that yet, but I'm still trying to get the steelhead side down. But yeah, those guys are the ones that go out and show me how to do it. And
cool.
Yeah. So that's
What I was going to talk a little bit about the podcast, but before we jump into that, what do you think has been your biggest struggle with steelheading? What do you think is the one thing that you could maybe improve on, or biggest challenge for you?
Well, with my group, a lot of us are disabled, but especially with me, I really don't feel anything in my feet and below my knees. So once I get out there, start wading, and you're going through a run, and like let's say something on the Cowlitz, and there's a lot of big boulders and stuff out there, and I have a hard time making it through the run. So a lot of times if the run's crowded or something, I'll pull myself out, let people go by, and
gotcha.
It's just, somebody catches a fish in front of it as I go by, and that really sucks, but it's just the right thing to do. But so I, so I struggle with that, but and just trying to make it through a run. A lot of times I end up sitting stagnant too long in a run. Yeah, just because it's hard to make it through. But,
Gotcha.
You take your spills and you get some water down your waders, and then you just drive on and you keep going. But it's a lot of fun. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's the hardest part.
Yep. And were you now? And I'm not even sure your age. Was this? Were you in Iraq, or what war, or what were you in?
So I retired around the end of 2000, right as this Iraq war started.
Oh, okay.
So
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I mean, I guess the main thing I want to check in with you here is we're trying to just do, celebrating a little bit of everybody out there who kind of is hopefully learning from the podcast, and maybe taking, I've got a lot of people that I've interviewed that are pretty knowledgeable and stuff like that. So I just want to ask you first with the podcast, what do you think is the thing that you like most about it, or I don't know if there's an episode that sticks out or something that, the reason you've listened to some of the episodes?
Well, there's a lot of good podcasts out there, but what I really enjoy about yours, Dave, is it's really oriented towards the Pacific Northwest. And it's oriented towards the fishing that we do up here. A lot of the guys you have on your show are from around here. They talk about the waters that we fish up here. And, I like listening to all kinds of guys and all kinds of fishing, but I really enjoy listening to the guys who kind of fish the waters that we fish.
Yeah.
Especially if they're kind of masters at it, So you have a lot of those guys. So
Gotcha.
I really listen to those guys, and I learn a lot from them.
That's
so
cool.
That's what I really enjoy. So it's oriented towards our waters and the type of fishing that we do.
Gotcha.
Up here.
That's good to hear. Yeah, you're actually the first person that I've heard this. I haven't thought that much about it because I have gotten around and talked to a few people. In fact, I just interviewed. I'm getting ready to Kelly Gallup, who is who's a big Montana, not too far away, but a big Montana streamer guy. But I just learned when I talked to him that he was a big steelhead guy for many, many years before he got into the whole. So we talked a little bit about that. But no, that's good to hear that. Yeah, that just the local. That and I actually don't even know. That's the funny thing. I should probably be better at my own numbers, but I'm not even sure what percentage of people listen are from kind of this area. But I just kind of guess that it's more than half probably that are from the western. Right. Yeah. Okay. And so if you look at the other side of it, what do you think? Is there anything that potentially we could do differently on the show to make it more beneficial for you, or different topics we could talk about, or anything that we could tweak to make it just better for you, better experience?
Oh, I really like the fly tying portion. So when you get the guys on there talking about fly tying and stuff like that, I really enjoy that, and kind of because I'm not I understand. I do a lot of fly tying, and I understand the whole part about it, but I'm not an innovator. Mm-hmm. I'm never going to come up with my own patterns and stuff like that. So I enjoy that side of it, how these guys come up with their patterns and whatnot, and so I enjoy that part when you have the fly tire guys on there.
Yep.
And so I'm looking forward to when you start getting these fly tire guys on there.
Nice.
And hearing their side of it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's good. I guess that's definitely one of the things. I think the more people I talk to now, I think I'm starting to think about season 3 and 4 and 5 coming up, and I think fly tying will be probably season 4. So I think I've got a DIY season coming up that's going to be touching on some stuff that are really around the world. But yeah, fly tying will be shortly thereafter, and I'll sprinkle in some fly tires as well. Plus a lot of the people we talk to, I try to always dig into a little bit of their flies, at least what they use. But yeah, that's good.
Right. Yeah.
That's good to hear. Okay. Now, and for you, what do you think? I guess for steelhead or whatever you want to pick, what would be your go-to fly, or maybe a go-to fly for trout or steelhead? What would you say?
Well, over this past year, I really got into streamers. I tried to fish a lot of streamers, and I tried to study that whole thing. And there we have a chapter of the muskie chapter chapter from the muskies Inc. up here, and they fish the tiger muskies. Huh. And so I started investigating that, and I tried fishing the tiger muskies that we have in the lakes up here in Washington. What I found out really quick is you got to have a pretty good boat. I got a Livingston boat, and it does okay. But when you got a fish following your fly that's about as long as your leg, and it swallows that fly, and it starts going wild, you have to kind of be able to make your way around the boat.
Yeah.
And Livingston with the center, the way it goes down the center there, it's not really built for that. But so yeah. So you kind of have to have some room to move around on the boat, and then get that big sucker up in the boat and whatnot, and deal with it, and then let it go, because you don't want to hurt the fish and whatnot. So, so that's I'm kind of looking into getting a new boat for that.
Gotcha.
But this last year, I really got into the streamer fish and tried to do that whole thing.
That's cool. So where are you? And where are you fishing now? So you're up there. So where are you fishing for muskie?
Lake Taps. They have Lake Taps, Lake Merwin. They have it, and I forget the name of the big dam out there by the Cowlitz.
Oh, really? Wow. So, God, I didn't even realize that. That's cool. I should probably. Yeah. Wow. So you're out there.
Yeah. So
that's cool.
It's a lot of fun, Dave. Let me tell you, nothing will get your heart beating like watching a fish as big as your leg follow your fly. So.
That's pretty cool. I had another interview. It's not out yet, but I'm trying to think of who it was. But we were talking about trout, but we got into muskie, talking about muskie. It was George Daniel, who is coming out a little bit later. But yeah, we started talking about muskie, and he just started talking about how passionate he was. He's kind of known more for trout, I guess, but how much he loves the muskie fishing. And and God, I didn't even realize I might have to hit you up and make my way up there eventually. And
come on up, Dave. It's
cool.
A blast. Let me tell you.
That's awesome.
You know, they'll make you give up trout.
No kidding. Yeah. So what's the if you had to pick, do you have a common fly you like to use for them?
Well, you know, I started not knowing anything about them. I started tying these big musky flies and stuff like that, and I found out really quick that the tiger muskie up here don't really go after those big musky flies that the guys like in the Midwest and stuff use.
Gotcha.
And those guys, you know, they throw them in the rivers, and a lot of those flies, because they're in the rivers, they animate themselves.
Yeah. And
our muskie are in lakes up here, and so you have to animate the fly.
Yep.
So and the lakes, and they're crystal clear, so a lot of times they're following your fly, and as you can't take a muskie unless it's over 50 inches. Not that anybody's taking the muskie, but you got to be 50 inches or larger. So a lot of these muskie have been caught so many times that they're pretty wise.
Huh.
So as they're following your fly up to the boat, and once they see you or the boat, boom, they're gone. They turn away and they're gone. So they're pretty wise. So
damn, that's awesome though. You're getting a chase.
So I kind of been simplifying those flies, tying them either with some bucktail deceivers or some sheep hair, something like that, down on the 2/0, and trying to just doing a really good strip set on those when they take them.
Huh. That's awesome. Yeah, that might be a cool finding a guest that fishes that fishery or somewhere up there might be cool to have on as well. Yeah.
Oh, hey, I got a perfect guy for you.
Oh, good. Good. Yeah. Maybe that might be a good, we'll follow up on that. So do you have like a fish species or like a bucket list somewhere in the country or world that you'd love to get out to and fish that you haven't hit yet?
Well, we were just talking last night at the Healing Waters tie night. One of the guys is flying out to the Seychelles this week, and going to fish trevally and bonefish out there. I mean, that would be a dream trip. I would love to do something like that. But I was just thinking about this today. I really kind of envy the guys who kind of like Phil Rowley. He just does still water. And then a lot of guys up here, they just fish the Sound for sea run cutthroats and, coho or whatever. I kind of envy those guys because they specialize their gear and their tying just towards that type of fishing. And me, I'm kind of like, I like everything. I'm all over the place.
Sure.
So I got poles for still water, and I got poles for this, and I got tying material for this. So this week I'll tie, I'll maybe visit Phil Rowley's website, and I'll type a bunch of still waters, and then go hit some lakes, and then we may go down to the Hoe or something and fish, fish out there. So then I'll tie some of those flies, and so I'm like all over the place.
That's cool.
So I'm never really getting any good at one. I just kind of envy those guys who just kind of stick to one type of fishing,
Yeah, no,
like Tom Lerman, he just steelhead fishes, right?
Well, but what I learned about Tom is that he did, but he's also a big trout guy too. So I think a lot of them bounce around. They get into one thing and then they move on and do something else, and get into that thing. But yeah, that's cool. So yeah, you've got a lot of interest. I mean, and I do have a guest on that talks. It's going to be on probably early next year on the Seychelles. Captain Jack, who's a big, he's a big guy. He fishes all those areas, and we had a good conversation. But well, what do you think? I mean, the last question I was going to ask you is, what do you think it is about fly fishing for you that is the one thing that, you really love, or that thing that's just that passion? Is there anything that sticks out that is, keeps you going? And
oh gosh, over the past year, like I said, I got into streamers, and I think what really drew me to that was the heat, and nothing, I guess other than watching a big muskie swallow your fly, to watch, you throw a big white streamer out there and watch a big trout come up and swallow that streamer or hit that streamer. It's exciting.
Yep.
And so and then of course once the fish takes it, you can feel the head shakes and whatnot.
Yep.
So yeah, I think the technical aspects, the whole getting out there and just doing the whole and just being a part of it, I think is really
totally.
Like we kind of talked before, Dave. Your mind can only do one thing at a time, right?
Yep.
So you get out there and you're fly fishing, and everything else just kind of fades away, right?
That's right. That's
so all your pains and troubles and everything, and you're out there in nature and just having a good time.
No, that's it. That's cool. Yeah, and I love hearing the healing waters. I didn't know a lot about what they were all about other than just generally. So I have Jerry Lorang, who's going to come on in a few weeks and talk about healing waters. And, I know there's so many stories. And actually the one thing I was a little bit bummed on that show because, what I wanted to get into, because, I don't know if you like this about the podcast, but I love the stories. I love hearing like some of the stuff that these people have done and the connections they've made. And Project Healing Waters is all about the stories. And that was one thing with Jerry. I asked him about that. I was like, can you break out a couple of stories? And he kind of played the card like, well, I kind of got to get permission, right? You can't talk about anybody. Right. And I understand that, but so I'm hoping that eventually maybe I could maybe meet up with some of the people and, maybe there's other people. It sounds like you've been, have a good connection, but just to hear some of the stories and the, the impact, of Healing Water. I mean, is that something that resonates with you? Has Healing Waters had a big impact on you?
Yeah. I mean, the guys we have up here is a great bunch of guys, and I feel really fortunate to be part of this group because they're really, really good fishermen. A lot of them are really good fishermen. I've learned so much from them.
Yeah, so, and are they part of the, like, how does it work? So do you have the people that are kind of like, there's people that come in and help teach, and there's people that are actually wounded veterans, and there's like, what is that like? Who are the people, the great fishermen, or is it just a mix?
Yeah, well, we have both retired disabled guys. We have active duty disabled guys. We have guys that volunteer who come in and help with the program. So we have disabled people and we have volunteers. And both of those, some of those guys, a lot of the disabled guys, I mean, we have guys who, like we had a guy show up last night who's never tied anything, and we just sat him down at the vise and said, "Okay, come on, bud. Let's put a hook in the vise and let's tie up we normally start him on a woolly booger." Yep. Right. So, and sit him down and we start them on there, and we start planning trips, and we invite them along, and and yeah, I mean, we have every year we have this thing called the 2-fly competition up here where people come and volunteers come, and every boat has one disabled vet and one volunteer and a judge, and the judge is the rower, and every fisherman in the boat's allowed 2 flies, so it's kind of a strategy. And the people who are fishing have to strategize. Okay, what 2 flies are we going to take? And that's the only 2. And you have to take exactly the same flies. So you start fishing those flies, and if you break off or you lose those flies, your day's over. And so you fish those 2 flies all day long. Wow. And the biggest fish wins at the end of the day. So it's really fun, and it's a lot of volunteers, and it's 2 days, and it's a lot of good people, and we come together and we have a good time. And
that's awesome.
So yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, but what's your best thing to do, Dave, is come on up here with us one time and come out fishing with us, or your group down there. That's the best way to just get out there and get to know those guys.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's one of the things I could do. Yeah, I can actually bring, even though I'm not a veteran, I can still partake and help teach, or just be a part of the group. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They'd love to have you.
Do you think has anybody, has the show have other guys listened to the show, the podcast out there that you've heard of that it's been helpful?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure they have.
Yeah,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, well, we're slowly trying to build our own little movement. That's the cool thing about it. I think the Project Healing Waters is such a powerful thing. Obviously the podcast I have going isn't the same level, but I'm trying to do a similar thing. I'm just trying to build this little movement about trying to teach people, and I think the more people, I've talked about this before, but the more people that get into fly fishing, the better off we're going to be. So it's cool to listen to the group you're involved with. Well, I'll let you get going. I just, if people wanted to get in touch with you or your group, do you want to give a shout out to any place, your local group or anything else?
Yeah, I mean, we're on the web, the Project Healing Waters website. You can just look up there in the Northwest region. And we're out of the JBLM chapter.
JBLM?
Yeah, JBLM, which stands for Joint Base Lewis McChord.
Oh, that's right.
Used to be, back when used to be Fort Lewis.
Yeah.
Used to be the Army side and the McChord Air Force Base.
Oh,
and now, everybody's combined now. So it's now all combined. The Army base and the Air Force Base have combined. So it's now the Joint Base Lewis McChord.
That makes sense. I always wondered about that with the armed forces. Why the the force separations? Why not have it as just a joint? That sounds like they're getting the picture there. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, I mean, they talked about that for years, making a purple force.
Oh, really?
Everything, but
yeah,
just too many politics.
Too many politics. Yeah, that's right. All right, Steve. Well, appreciate you come on. This is a fun conversation, and I'll keep in touch with you here online and email and just make sure to. Yeah, and if I can get up there, that would be really cool. I'll try to touch base with you guys.
Okay, Dave.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right. Talk to you later.
Bye. That was a lot of fun talking to Steve. He has some great points of view, and just wanted to say thanks to all the guests that we had on here. I was originally thinking of doing a few more, but I think with 4, we've got a full episode here. So I'm going to kind of leave it at that, but maybe down the line, I'll do a little more of these listener, these listener call-in sorts of deals. So that's what I have for you. I just wanted to thank everyone out there who supported the show and subscribed and has maybe even shared an episode. It's the reason that keeps us going. Just want to note that the scissors dropping, if you heard that in the background again, is Juna. Juna's tying. She's becoming a pretty awesome fly tyer. And she's right now tying. What's the fly called you're tying? It's she's tying the daddy fly, so I'll have to take a picture of it when it's complete and put a link in the show notes. So yeah, but we got some big things coming up in 2019. Wanted to just get a chance to say thanks, and that's what this episode's about. And this is episode 52. Or it's in that range, the bonus episode, but I've got at least 52 more. And just a note on myself, I'm kind of a little bit of a slow starter. So if you liked what we've done so far, I think you're going to like the next 52, because I'm going to try to mix it up a little bit and have some cool surprises as we go. So thanks again, everyone. And I will leave it at that. Juna, do you want to sign off? Say anything for everybody listening? What do you have to say? Come on here. You want to say something on the mic before we let it go? Yeah. All right, come on over here. You can say anything you want to all the listeners out there. Go ahead. You want to say something about your fly? Just talk right here. Don't talk right in. There you go. Let's tell them about the fly you just tied. What was it called? It was called the daddy fly. And what material did you use? What color is it?
Black, red, and it has peacock feathers.
Wow. Black, red, and peacock. Probably the best colors you could possibly have. What inspired you to tie that fly? Is that going to, is there a thing that sticks out to you about the fly?
The peacock.
The peacock. That's the best. That's probably the best material in the world. Okay. All right. Thanks, June. Thanks.
Bye.
Say bye to everybody. All right. So there you go. You hear that's 6-year-old Juna Stewart tying flies on her own now. I'm not even sitting above her. coaching her. She's just like on the Vice doing it. So for anybody out there who hasn't started, jump on it. And so I'm signing off. I've got to get a better sign off. So there you go. If you want to find all the show notes with all the links we covered, just go to wetflyswing.com/52 bonus. That's the numbers 52 bonus. And I'll have some links there to some of the different show notes we have. And an easy way, if you want to subscribe to the show, is to text WFS to 31996. And then just click the link there, and that'll show you how to subscribe to the show via text. If you want to support the show, again, head over to wetflyswing.com/Patreon. That's Patreon. And find out how to get bonus content that helps the show and this little mini movement I'm calling it here. So thanks again for stopping by to check out the show today. I'm looking forward to catching up with you soon and hope to see you online or on the river.
Thanks for listening to the Wet Fly Swing Fly Fishing Show. For notes and links from this episode, visit wetflyswing.com. And if you found this episode helpful, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes.